Hello, and welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast, broadcasting to you live from emosocialclub.tv. I am Brian.
And I'm Lizzie, and we're here with Sarah and the Safe Word.
What up?
Thanks for coming on, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. So we have Sarah, Maddox, and Beth. I'll let you go around and introduce yourselves so everybody can get a sense of your voice and know who's talking for the rest of the episode, I guess. And just say what you do. And we said like, let's try to have like a fun fact, like an icebreaker. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's really the least cool thing we could do on a podcast like this.
It's sort of reminiscent of like those freshman classes you take in college where it's like, stand up and tell everyone your major and about it and why you chose this class.
Yeah.
So.
I
hate those so much. That was my least favorite part of class.
You're like, I'm here to learn whatever the fuck it is. Let's just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Never understood why they asked that because it's like, I'm here because it's required in my syllabus.
Yeah.
Really?
Like, if I don't take this, I don't fucking graduate. Like, what do you want from me?
Yeah, like it's literally algebra like 1101. I have to take this. I'm a history major. Why do you think I'm taking this?
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, I guess why you're taking this class is a good one. You know?
There we go. Yeah.
Throw that up.
My name is Sarah. I'm a vocalist. I'm a political science major. And I took this class because it was required. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Maddox. I play the bass, history major, and yeah, also required class.
I'm Beth. I play the keyboards, and I'm actually a criminal justice major because who cares?
Ooh.
There's no rules anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Good.
So literally to a history major. I work in tech now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Aren't we all working in tech in a way? Also, we're getting like someone's Discord is going off.
It's my Discord. I didn't saw that. So sorry.
Gotcha. No worries. We all were like,
I went in. I'm like,
Discord?
who's hitting us up? We're
I
streaming.
felt very
It's
by the chat, and I was like, maybe I can play it off like it's not my Discord. And then
the whole time you got like 100 people just checking their what?
I'm like, what? What is going on?
Who needs me? Sweet. So I want to give everybody an idea of kind of how your band sounds to anybody who hasn't heard you. To me, you all sound like a new Venetia Fair, which I guess that's kind of one of your influences.
I love that.
Yeah, I am a huge fan. So it was very exciting to start listening to your new record and being like, oh shit, this is Venetia Fair type shit. So that was good. So you guys describe it as a cabaret influence, right? So where does that kind of influence come from, and how do you describe your music instead of listening to me describe it to you?
We say cabaret rock because I think sort of a thread that runs through all of our music is we like vintage music, but something that we really love digging into is 1930s cabaret and vaudeville and sort of things that came out of the vaudeville scene of the 1930s, the Weimar cabaret stuff, because I feel like that was kind of the original punk rock. So much stuff in the 1930s was centered around women's liberation, artistic expression, queer liberation. It was cut short, unfortunately, because of terrible things that happened at the time. But yeah, I think that whole art movement and that whole counterculture of that time was sort of like the original dissonance and weird moment sort of in the last century. And it's kind of fun to draw inspiration from that.
Oh, that's really awesome. I remember listening to you guys like I think a couple years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is like early Panic at the Disco for me." And I was like, "This is like really the vibe I've been looking for." Because there's
Oh
always
yeah.
that extra step that you want sometimes in music. I like really like kind of like not like theatrical, but like Repo, the genetic opera. Like I really like that type of music too.
I
And I
love Reaper.
listen yeah, I know. I've been seeing a bunch of like random like posts about it, and I'm like, did we all just collectively forget about this until like last week? I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah,
I mean, Halloween.
Well, listen, it's continuous.
Halloween is continuous.
It's
For
always
this
forever.
within this community, Halloween is continuous.
I would like to
Oh,
think that our band is pretty much just a constant state of Halloween
Yeah.
and fluxing. Yeah.
Which is probably why I
Yeah.
like the sound of it so much. And the sound of like early Panic and the sound of Venetia Fair is like, oh, this is all that sort of like weird serial killer Victorian era
Hell
type
yeah.
shit that it's like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
These are words that like I feel like we always have trouble describing our music because we do come from such like different backgrounds. Like we all liked a lot of the same bands and stuff growing up, but like we have these jazz influences as well, and some of us have classical training, and Keenan plays in a wedding band on the weekends, so he plays like all this funk guitar that I'm like, I don't know how that happens. Guitar is like magic to me, but I think we struggle to describe it ourselves, and I think we end up with more of like a word cloud with things like serial killer and Victorian era and like 1930s black. Like,
Yeah,
Demons.
it's very serial killer Victorian adjacent.
Yeah.
Right on that intersection.
Yeah.
So
Right there.
that might put you on a list of either
Yeah.
like we need to
Maybe-
investigate
sure
or
many.
great
I'm,
band.
I'm probably already on a few, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
I'm collecting them at this point. So,
Collecting list positions.
yeah.
We should also mention that there are, if my current count is up to date, 7 people in your band.
There are 7 people in our band. We have me, I sing, and then we have a violin player, a viola player, Beth plays keys, Maddox plays bass. We have Keenan on guitar and Carlos on drums. So
Damn.
That's
So,
a lot. Of people.
And I asked you this before we started recording, but I want to talk about it because it just always concerns me and interests me. How do you get 7 people to do something at the same time in the same place and like it works? How do you do that?
I mean,
Oh my God.
concerning is a good word for it. I mean, it's like herding cats. That's what it is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
we all play gigs, we all have other stuff going on, and then we all do this and we love this and are passionate about it, so we find these little times throughout the week that I mean, we were just planning a couple of things that we're getting ready to get together for, and it was like, okay, well, can we break it into 2 Saturdays? Can we because that's how we make it work, and people try to stay flexible for it, and we're just kind of, it's like herding cats. Getting all 7 of us together in one place is a rarity.
Yeah, we like didn't have our Google Calendar for like a month, and like all of our schedule fell apart and nobody knew what was happening.
I think we're also lucky too because it's just that all of us get along really well. I've been in bands with 2 or 3 people in them, and they were more dysfunctional somehow than like the 7 of us are. So I think in a way we just also got really lucky that all of us genuinely really like being around each other, so we make it work, which is cool.
It's a family.
Yeah.
It really is.
Get together, and we want to get together to rehearse and hang out and have pizza, and Carlos makes some kick-ass spaghetti.
Yeah, we had spaghetti night the other night, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Like, do you even want to play music after eating spaghetti though?
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
feel like I'm like, I'm heavy. I need a nap.
You know, that's
Once
real.
you get some wine in you, you're fine.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you're hanging out and you're jamming, you're playing music, is it wine? Is it whiskey? Is it like, what is the drink of choice then at rehearsal?
I think that all of us we're kind of different for what we drink. Like Beth is pretty much a wine drinker. I know that. because I've been at
It's a red solo cup. It could literally be anything.
Yeah, it really could. It's a guessing game.
yeah. I pretty much I'll drink anything. I'm a big fan of classic cocktails, surprising no one. I love like vintage shit. So like I'm a big fan right now of Prohibition cocktails. I'm drinking Boulevardier right now. So that's where I'm at.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean I'll drink anything too, but my favorite is whiskey. I'll drink anything with whiskey in it.
So both the answer to the question.
Everything.
Everything.
What is available, I'll have all of that.
Put it in front of me and I'll drink it.
It's a dangerous life to live, but it is the life we choose.
So you guys like jumped on to take this to Heart Records too earlier this year, right? To release Good Gracious Bad People.
Last year, actually, we
okay.
released our last album, Red Hot and Holy, on Take This to Heart as well. That was last year. It came out around March of last year, and that was our first release with them. And yeah, this is our second album on Take This to Heart. So
yeah.
How has that like process been? Because I guess you were obviously doing it DIY before. How has it kind of shaped it and changed it? Because I know at least y'all have on the site for like, I don't want to be a merch peddler, but it was kind of cool to see that you guys had like a mixology book to go with it.
Yeah,
that was cool.
That's
like, cool.
Again, like going with your Prohibition drinks. Yeah. Everybody seems to be really into this big Victorian kind of like Southern theatrical goth vibe. Is how I've explained you to my friends before.
It's really good.
That's more, but I think that is so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, we can't take this to heart enough. I mean, all the people there have been really receptive to everything that we wanted to do. The mixology book that you brought up, I mean, that was literally a phone call I had with the label where I said, it'd be really cool if we had like a drink recipe book that we could pair with the album. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, really?
They were like super receptive to all our weird ideas, and then we that one, and now we have the recipe book. It's so awesome.
Yeah,
that's legit.
And the great thing about Take This to Heart is you always hear stories of labels that like the guy in the suit swoops in. He's like, you have to make an album full of this and this. We've never had that with Take This to Heart. They've trusted us completely to go into the studio, make an album, and give us the flexibility to make the choices that we want to make for our band and do what we want to do. And that's pretty rare and pretty awesome to have from a label.
Absolutely.
I would think with the kind of music you guys do, it'd be more of a thing to let those kind of weird ideas float to the surface and to happen. I mean, there are a lot of theatrical bands, like we said, like early Panic at the Disco and that, where it's like, the weird ideas was what brought people to them. What brought the audience in was like, oh, I love this band. It's like creepy and weird. I'm putting that in quotes because I'm like, that was just my life. So I'm like, oh yeah, like you're doing that stuff that I am used to. So to me, it's not weird, but like it is that sort of thing where you're like setting yourselves apart from the sort of everything else that's happening, and you're sort of standing out with that sort of stuff. So I'd assume that the weird ideas probably got you to this point.
I mean, I hope so. I think I don't know if any of us know how not to be weird. So I'm really glad that worked out for us. So we wouldn't really know how to operate if we weren't being our strange, eccentric selves.
Yeah, for real.
That is very fair. And honestly, I feel like we've been very fortunate with a community like that, where it's like Lizzie and I are just so strange. So it's like good to hear that's like, hey, there's hope for you yet if you are a strange person and are very passionate about what you do. There's hope for you yet. There's a community for you.
That's why we call it here the cult/club. So also you can add that into your repertoire of loud words.
Nice.
Oh boy.
I aspire to be a charismatic cult leader one day. So.
Absolutely.
Now here's the thing: are we talking about like a classic charismatic cult leader? Or are we talking like Jared Leto?
No, I make good music.
Damn. Shots fired.
Jared Leto's about to come into this for no reason, completely unprompted.
Jared Leto is going to be... Jared Leto was unaware of coronavirus for like months because he was just on like a weird self-retreat on an island. He's like, what? What's happening?
I read about that.
Yeah.
How strange to be Jared Leto.
Yeah. Oh, but like how
He's
beautiful
gonna
that
be
would
the
have
Joker
been.
again, though. So like, let's be real. There's a lot of other things.
I do like Jared Leto, and I do like 30 Seconds to Mars, and I'll
Actually,
put myself out there
I
with
can't
it.
even lie. I really love a lot of 30 Seconds to Mars songs.
Yeah, like the early stuff was great.
They
Yeah.
are.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Someone
Yeah.
described them as maximalist, like rather than like it's like around the same time when I was like listening to Lord, and it was like this is minimalist pop, this is minimalist alternative, and it's like 30 Seconds to Mars maximalist. Like if I can find another instrument, I will put it into this, and I love that idea.
You kind of have to love like how much they lean into the absurdity of some of their shit. Like I remember that one video where they like become samurai.
Mhm.
There's like an army of like 400 people that like it's insane. And you're like,
It's-
well, I mean,
Like what am I gonna do? I don't have the resources to hire that many samurai.
I mean, like if someone was like, hey, we're gonna give you like a $25 million budget and you can do whatever you want, I'd be like, yeah, I think I want to go like film like a samurai film like in Japan.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So,
This band would make it so weird.
yeah.
7 people's worth of ideas.
And
Oh
samurai.
yeah,
Yeah.
we start with samurais.
Mhm.
On the topic of cults, I want to ask if you have all seen the show The Vow, because this is my like most current understanding of cult leaders, and I'm very concerned about calling ourselves a cult or using the term cult and being like, oh, but The Vow though.
Did you not listen to any of those Jonestown's podcasts that I listened to in a row, and you were just
No, I did
really
not listen to this. I did not
Okay.
listen to those with you.
I have not watched The Vow, but I did finish a documentary on Jonestown recently, and
Okay.
that was pretty wild. So, yeah.
I have-
that's not the cult leaders we want to be.
Don't aspire to the Jonestown cult. That's
Yeah,
not.
no, absolutely fucking not.
That's a bad.
Yeah.
That's a bad direction to take your
Yeah,
Yeah,
brand.
that's bad. I know that they're
That's-
technically our neighbors in Indiana, but also, first of all, it's Indiana.
We don't
Second
want to
of
be like
all,
anything else in
Indiana.
Indiana. Why would we
Yeah,
pick that?
absolutely
I don't want to insult Indiana on your podcast.
Oh,
Never
I'll
been
do
there,
it.
so
Oh, I'll
Okay.
fire some shots off on this podcast. Yo, Indiana, come at me, bro. I'll take a whole state on. I don't give a shit.
Oh my god.
great.
I'll watch.
I'll watch that.
Yeah, yo,
I
you'll let
pay-per-view
them
that
attack me
shit.
on Twitter because I'm the one on Twitter and you're not. And then you're gonna be like,
Indiana-
hey, how's it going on Twitter with Indiana?
Indiana, whenever you guys figure out Twitter, go talk to Lizzie.
No.
So The Vow is a cult that was based around corporate retreats kind of thing. So it was like a lot of like, this is how to be a better manager. This is how to be a better thought leader in your organization. So you pay for sending everybody in your company to a retreat, and they'd all experience this thing, and then they'd start bringing in more people to be a part of the organization itself. They would call their leader oh fuck, what's the name of it? It's something with a P, but it's like they basically like worship this guy who said, I have a 200 IQ or whatever, super high IQ, and he like then just becomes like this manipulator, and he starts attracting people from Hollywood, and so all these Hollywood actresses come in and they start convincing other people, and it's a lot of people who are like, I never got to where I wanted in my career, but now this makes me feel good. And you listen to him
like
talk.
The worst multi-level marketing scheme.
It is 100% just multi-level marketing, but it's like it led to a sex cult, and I'm like, how did that happen? It's fucking wild. It is a very slow show. It takes a long time to get into it, and considering the podcast that Lizzie tries to send me, I'm like, this isn't as like you don't get a lot of the scandal in it. You hear about a lot of the scandal, but you don't get a lot of the scandal. It's more like, how are we going to take this whole thing down? It's worth a watch, but it's certainly like the concern is like, we're using this term cult, and it's like, I'm just trying to hang out with my friends.
With my friends.
I'm just trying to do a podcast.
I think you're safe. I don't think you're gonna like lead anyone down a dark brainwashed path. You can if that's what you're into.
You can if you want.
don't think I can if I want, but
No.
I also don't think. I mean, my anxiety level is way too high to handle that kind of responsibility.
I'll give you lessons sometime.
Thank you. I need lessons in self-confidence so I can finally be the cult leader that I deserve
that you
to
deserve to be. That Jared Leto would want you to be.
be. Jared Leto would be like, that guy's in a cult. It's been months. I had no idea. Oh, I imagine that's how Jared Leto talk. I have no idea. Also, side note, 30 Seconds to Mars, fantastic live show. Just throwing that out there too. They got a lot of money.
Show. I caught them at a festival a few years ago, and they were really cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, a lot of money, a lot of Hollywood money being put into that.
yeah.
I did want to note, I really like how in your like description in general on like your Facebook and just like your, basic like band info pages, it says that you're the band that played at Jay Gatsby's funeral. And I'm a big like Great Gatsby nerd. So I thought that was like fucking cool. That like got me right there.
Yeah, that's we've kept that in our bio pretty much since the band started, and I've always enjoyed throwing that out there. So, yeah.
Yep.
It's a good visual.
Yeah.
I imagine just that, like the Leo meme of him holding the glass up and the green light in the distance, and
Exactly. Yeah, I think of that meme every time I read our bio, and I always think maybe I should eventually take that out of our bio because it's been in it for like 4 years, but I think it speaks the band and describes the band really well.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You need a meme of like him with that meme, but in a black suit instead.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But when what was the kind of like the thought process of starting this type of band, especially if you guys started like 4 years ago? This hasn't been the type of like music that has been kind of made and produced so frequently as it was in like the early mid 2000s. So what was kind of like the push to have this type of project come to life?
Yeah, well, it kind of was a happy accident. I started the band 5 years ago as a solo project, and at the time, I really never thought that I was going to do music seriously again. I was in a band before this that had played around the South for like 10 years. And then I moved away from Atlanta for about a year. And I was like, that's it. I'm really not going to do music again, whatever. Then my career kind of brought me back to Atlanta. And I was like, I'll just do like a solo thing for fun. I'll play all the instruments. And I did this demo that was just myself, and then Keenan, who I kind of knew through the music scene here, he was the one that was in my ear really trying to convince me to like make it a band and do a thing again. And that's when the gears started turning and we started making music and trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And I grew up between Atlanta and New Orleans, so I've always had like a love of jazz and sort of spooky jazz and that Southern gospel kind of vibe. And of course, I'm a fan of bands like Panic at the Disco, and I was a really big fan of the self-titled Dresden Dolls record when I was growing up.
Yes.
And on top of that, I love 30s jazz, and I think that the idea that I had in my head was, there seemed to be a lot of bands that kind of leaned a little bit into being theatrical. I really wanted to try to do something that took it a little bit further. And that's kind of how this band came into play. And then we made our first record, and I met Susie and Courtney, who are string players, and Beth and Maddox, and everything kind of came into place and fell into where it is now, like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love Dresden Dolls, by the way. Just wanted to add that in there too. I was going to say it sounds a little Dresden Dolly, but with a lot more instrumentation, it's hard to be like you're comparing to Dresden Dolls because it's like there's more than 2 instruments here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great record, and I love that, and I love stuff like Cursive. Any band that can like utilize strings and things like cellos and violins and violas, I love that kind of stuff. Murder by Death. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Murder by Death. I was supposed to go to one of their Thalia Hall shows, but then COVID hit, and it was very upsetting.
They're a great band. They're amazing live.
Yeah.
Remember shows.
Places.
Remember fun.
Shows were cool.
Human interaction. Would recommend if I could.
But I really enjoyed Good Gracious Bad People, and when I was doing kind of more research on the band, I was kind of surprised that y'all wanted to kind of be apolitical in your music. I mean, obviously, when I was listening to some of the songs, I was like, "Oh, there's a little bit here," but in general, you've always said like you just kind of wanted it to be like not like escapism in a sense, like you're listening to a story being told rather than and like putting yourself in a different place, whether rather than being in the hot mess that is reality. And I
Hmm.
find that to be super interesting.
Well, yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding. It got printed in an interview once that we want to be apolitical, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think that my take has always been if there's a band that's talking about something, and I feel like they're discussing it better than we could, I'm not really sure that like I would want to try to say it in a way that was unique to us and was offering something new to the conversation. We've been political in some capacity before. Like on our last record, we have a song called "Dig a Fancy Grave," which I think you could argue is fairly political. And I think a lot of our other songs talk about political things, but they might not necessarily be obvious politics in the way that we think of, issues that are sort of on the forefront of people's minds today. Um, but in general, I think that we've sort of found that our lane is storytelling and being fantastical and creating an escape for people within our music scene. But that's not to say that we don't believe in cultivating a safe space, especially for queer people. And we say that at every show. One of the first things I'll say on stage, any show we play, is that this is a safe space for anyone in the LGBTQ community. And I will go out of my way if I know that there's a queer kid that's coming up to us, talking to us. If they look like they need someone to talk to, I'll spend extra time and give them resources to speak to. So we're not apolitical in the sense that we don't advocate and believe strongly in cultivating a unique and safe space for the queer community, especially within our music scene. We just want to. I don't think that we're as an obviously political band in the same capacity that a band like Against Me would be in the same place, and they're awesome, but they do what they do really well, and I feel like we do what we do really well. Or maybe we don't do it really well, but we do it, so fuck it.
Love that.
Yeah, I think, trust me, I think
Said it better.
you do it really well. So
Thank you.
This is the fun of doing it like over the internet is like I don't want to talk and then somebody's talking and stepping on toes and all that because I want to give all of you a chance to respond if you want to. So
that's my 9 to 5.
Yeah, like, have y'all been working from home then in this time? Y'all have, I mean, your majors makes me believe that you have interesting jobs. I've been unemployed for a few months now, so
It happens.
I'm like, what is a job like? What's a job and people like? It must be great.
I mean, it happens. I've been there before, and last year was kind of a struggle for me too because I got laid off from the job that I work when I'm not doing music, and it was a journey and experience to go through that. So I get it.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time unemployed before I finally landed in my career. History degree. Yes.
Yeah.
there you go. Yay.
Yeah, it's been a weird lockdown. I teach piano and voice lessons, and I've been teaching for 6-7 years, and I stopped back in February, and there's virtual lessons and I do them occasionally, but they're so difficult to do because there's lag, so it's not like you can like do warm-ups for a singer on the other end because it's gonna lag, it's not gonna match, and I've tried it and I keep throwing myself off every time I do it. So anyway, so I've just kind of been doing like odd jobs, whatever I could do. And I finally just got a new job teaching lessons again in a COVID safe lesson room, which is
Love it.
So rare down here.
Yeah. Has it been, without setting off any landmines or anything, but has it been interesting in the South?
Oh Lord.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Moving on. No, I mean, I've been interested in like the discussions of I don't want to say north versus south, because it's not north versus south. It's just like different communities and different people living different experiences in different cities is kind of how I've seen it. But obviously, like, we are in Chicago, we're in the north. We feel like we are pretty safely in a liberal hotbed of we're all good and we all pretty much share the same opinion, which we've also found is clearly not the case. But always interested in that.
Yeah, to throw in there, I think there's a big misconception about the South. And I think that we've learned that, right? Especially in this last election, right? I think, I've lived a lot of places in my life. I've lived in Boston, I've lived in Maine, I've lived in DC, I've lived in San Francisco last year. If you listen to the record, you know that's true. And one thing I've learned, especially when I leave sort of south of Appalachia and go anywhere else in America, there's this conception that Georgia is sort of this like hotbed of like only conservative thinkers, and nothing could be further from the truth about our state. And I mean, the fact that our state, not even talking about my own politics, and I won't get into that on this, but like the idea that Georgia is just a conservative place that sort of is full of backwards ideals, and not to say that that's a characterization of conservatives or whatever, but isn't really true. I mean, Atlanta is one of the most progressive cities in the country. The county that it's in, Fulton County, voted overwhelmingly for Joe Biden in the last election, voted overwhelmingly Democratic in almost every election it has one of the largest populations of LGBTQ people in the country. So I've always found that this narrative of like North versus South or East Coast versus West Coast or everything, I don't know if it's applicable to the South and Southern America in general, but I've certainly, just in my own experiences growing up in Georgia, have not found that there's a lack of young people, especially, that have very progressive ideals and believe in equality. That's not to say that there isn't a lot of very loud voices that are anti-LGBTQ in the South, and I don't want to downplay that at all. But I think that a lot of people don't realize that. I think it's kind of like what Stacey Abrams said, that Texas and the AOC said that Atlanta is not a red state; it's a voter suppressed state. Now, I won't interject my opinion on that, but I'll leave that to like people to think about.
Yeah, like going off what Sarah said, I'm actually like from the north. I moved to Georgia like 14, and I totally thought my entire life the South was always just generalized. And when I came here, I was extremely pleasantly surprised to like grow up through like my like pivotal years with a really strong community, a really like a LGBTQ backbone in my community, and it was amazing. And like that's right here in Atlanta, and I'm in Fulton County, and our Pride Festival is amazing every year. We have so much support and love in the city, and you just don't know that when you're in the north and you don't come down here and see it for yourself. I feel like there's just too much generalization, and there's too many voices that you hear coming from Georgia that don't reflect who we actually are.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is that if you look at the music scene in Atlanta, there's so many. I mean, we were saying this in another interview the other day. If a band tells you they're from Atlanta, you never know what kind of music they play, right? Because the music scene here is so eclectic. I mean, we have arguably the biggest hip hop community in the country now. We're sort of leading that whole music movement. Incredible punk scene, huge queer music scene, and like us fucking weirdness came out of it. So there must be something progressive going on within the city of Atlanta for this kind of art to be cultivated within it,
I definitely I started going down to Shaky Knees Music Festival a couple years ago, and I was
Oh, rad.
It is like one of my favorite festivals now.
It's
I went
a
because the
great
Distillers
fucking
came
festival.
back. So
It's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the
It
best
is, yeah.
in the country for sure.
and I never really gone to the South other than to like Florida for Disney World, and then I have family in some parts of Texas, but in like El Paso because we're Mexican, and then I've been to Arkansas, and then I was like, I'm not coming back to Arkansas again. So I was like really nervous. about what was gonna happen. But when I stayed in Atlanta, I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is very like, city. It just reminded me of Chicago in a sense, just a little bit smaller, obviously, to an extent. And I think you saying and quoting Stacey Abrams as well to say, "Hey, this is a voter suppression state. We would be blue if we didn't have all these restrictions and gerrymandering and other things that were going on." To kind of pull out and say, "These people are here and they need to be listened to and have the ability to do so." And to also include that there's a large supportive community for LGBTQ people too is also amazing to hear and to know that that's happening in Atlanta, in this area that it's usually so misconstrued.
Yeah, and I think Atlanta, there's a saying in Atlanta that has taken on a lot of popularity, especially in the last couple of years. Atlanta isn't perfect, and it's not a perfect city. I think it's a city that's still in a lot of ways trying to figure out what kind of city it wants to be, especially because our generation, we sort of, at least statistically, we've rejected the idea of suburban living in a lot of ways, and a lot of us, as millennials, so children of boomers, have moved back into the Atlanta area from the suburbs outside of it. We call it inside the perimeter here. So a lot of us have moved inside the perimeter. So you see this younger generation in Atlanta really trying to give the city identity and give it culture and figure out what Atlanta could be, going into the next century. And that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what's happening really is that our generation is finally getting to have a say in what's going on. Like we get to run for office now and we get to, make decisions on what goes in what building. There's a building downtown. Sarah, I can't remember the Coca-Cola building. They moved, right? And that building sits there empty by Masquerade.
Yes. So yeah, it was the old World of Coke building moved down to a different location downtown. It's empty, and there's a push right now by young activists in the city to make it like a Georgia History Center of some kind, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
and like it's that kind of stuff that like some of these buildings that have been there forever. I took field trips there when I was a kid, and as with my third grade class or whatever, and now they sit empty, and we get to make the choice on what happens next with those buildings. And that's a lot of that is happening within the perimeter, but it's expanding past that, and that I think is newer. I think there's just more of our generation that's just is ready for things to be a little different. And
Yeah, we saw it this past summer.
yeah, people are
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's really cool, especially, just keep talking about the LGBTQ community because you are a band of all queer individuals as well.
Who told?
Breaking news here on the Emo Social Club
breaking
podcast.
news.
Give it away.
Wow. I don't know how I'm going to cope with this information.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Listen.
That's some bad news, Mike.
No, because you guys are an all queer band, and you have this platform to be able to introduce a lot of this to people who maybe wouldn't have that type of background or introduction to different people like who are in the LGBTQ community, and also just be a figure as well, and to be a safe space for people too. And how has that kind of played into creating your music and then also just, being artists within yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, every song that I write, lyrically, musically, anything, I mean, it comes from a life experience, and I would probably be remiss to say that my transitioning and being a non-binary person that leans femme and being pansexual wouldn't have some kind of big theory, and like any of that wouldn't be an impact on how I write music and how I see the world. We in the band typically don't. I've written a few times in songs, but it's been rare for me to talk directly about my transitioning my queer experience. Again, because I feel like there are other bands that have articulated it better than I could have, and also I don't know if that's sort of the role that our band plays, like a band like Against Me. But as far as the queer experience that I've had has gone, speaking for myself, I mean, just knowing what it was like to be a young person that was struggling to come out and find a place in the music scene, we've always tried to say to kids that, you know, we're an openly queer band. You know, this is a place where we want you to feel welcome. We encourage our queer followers to express their creativity. We want them to know that they can do that around the band anytime that they want to. So that's been my experience, you know, just sort of as an openly non-binary person. I think that I felt a responsibility, and I'm sure the band feels the same way, that we need to use our platform to empower queer voices and shine a light on them in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my personal experience is just like, I mean, for lack of a better word, just to exist and be queer, be an openly transgender man, and just be kind of like that person that I didn't have growing up. I just kind of want to just help anybody know that, you know, you can do it. You can be whoever you are and do what you want to do. And if anybody ever comes to me, I'm happy to talk to them and everything. And I just like Sarah said, just being a voice in the community is important.
I think it's very interesting about how 2020 is kind of rolled out, and everything that's happened this year is that there's a much more, like, people are much more interested in bands that don't look the same, music that doesn't look the same, music that comes from a wide range of voices. We're big fans of a band called Meet Me at the Altar as well, and like how these are
they're so good. They're so great.
They're awesome.
So it's you know, is it 3 girls that are in the band, Lizzie? Yeah, because I think they put out a video and I was confused. I'm like, who's this 4th person? Or it might have just been the same person twice. I don't know. I don't know how they made the video. Look, it's a hard time to put out video content right now with a full band. You got
tell me about it.
Yeah, so you'd have to record 7 different videos and put them all together into a cohesive product at the end. So I can only imagine it's harder for you. But like three girls who are saying no one looked like us in the music we grew up listening to, and we want to be that band for somebody else. And I'm hearing from so many people now who are just fans of music. Like, it is incredible to see bands that look different than every other fucking band that everybody had to grow up with. I mean, we mentioned all the bands that are an influence in your band are all generally bands of white guys, which is not for lack of, it's just the fact that they are. It's not for lack of, you know, there weren't other bands that were out there, but I certainly think that 2020 has taught us, like, it's time for a more wide-ranging musical diet than just the straight heteronormative white dudes on stage just performing songs about girls that broke their heart in high school. Just a stereotype that we make, but it's like it's just, there's so much of that pervading in the scene. And so now that there are more bands and people want to see more bands, I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see that the tide is shifting a lot, and that's sort of all encompassing, right? I think that you see people being threatened in music journalism in a lot of ways. A lot of masculine voices in music journalism are very threatened by the idea of queer bands sort of out there expressing themselves. And I think that there's a lot of masculine voices that are very threatened by people invading music spaces with queer and femme voices. And I think it's kind of cool to see that clash and that rebellion happening, and more queer voices sort of getting a platform. I mean, even 10 years ago, when I was sort of playing in my old band, the idea of like being an openly queer band, that was getting relegated so often to like the DIY scene. And that's not the DIY scene, but those kind of bands would be playing like basements and things and getting signed to lo-fi labels. And now you see openly queer artists, you know, really competing in a lot of ways for mainstream attention and being part of the mainstream conversation in music. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. I remember there was
definitely.
I don't remember if it was an alternative press or some artist in like the pop punk emo alternative scene like that was like, there are a bunch of artists that are in bands that everybody loves who are not out as whatever they are. I don't remember specifically like what they were saying, if they were like whatever, but it was very strange to read that at the time and be like, why? And knowing now that there's like this bigger shift to like, it is more acceptable, put that in quotes because I'm like, to me it was always acceptable, but like, is it more like culturally acceptable? Is it more economically acceptable, like to be a band that like can actually have a career in music, being that, where it wasn't so much in the past too? Do you think that like the economics of it has maybe affected why we didn't have so many bands like that in the past?
How capitalist of you! Look at your.
Listen. I watched I watched The Social Dilemma last night, and I'm like,
He
I need y'all
literally
to just say
texted me. He
capitalism
was
is
like,
ruining
Did you
it.
see this?
I'm like, I need y'all to be like, yo, capitalism is ruining this country. I need y'all to say it.
I'm not gonna say that, but because I am a journalist, but
Right.
I'm not a journalist. I'll say it. It's my opinion.
I'm not a journalist either.
All the non-journalists feel comfortable.
Only my opinion.
That's why I comment the more political stuff on the podcast Twitter, so no one can try to track me down on my personal Twitter.
Yeah,
Say it to me.
I will say that if there's ever a question on here that I'm not answering that's political, it's mostly because in my day job I work as a journalist. I try to keep my political opinion to the wayside, but I would say that if you're curious what I believe, you can probably defer it from our lyrics. You're asking me about the economics of being a queer band. I don't know. I mean, honestly, the last thing I think about when we're making music is the economics of whether or not it makes sense to be viable. I mean, that's sort of like, and I mean, when you're a queer person and the idea is all I want to do is be able to make music like everyone else, you don't really have the luxury of thinking like, what are the economics of my ability to
Right.
create art and exist in this space? You're just thinking, man, I really fucking hope that I can play this fucking show without someone calling me a slur tonight. So that's the only thought process that I think we've ever had, has been like, we're lucky to get to do it. We're lucky that a label took a chance on us and like did it. We would be doing it, I think, as a band regardless of the economics, so I think that it's really flattering and really humbling that like we get to make things like the mixology kit, right? And get to sell stuff, but we would be touring and playing shows even regardless of the economics and causing problems for people. So I'm glad that it's more economically viable now for people, but there's always been a queer underground. There's always been a viable queer community. I mean, the New York punk rock scene started as a queer commune. So, I think that it's less a question about economics, more a question about viability. And I think now people are just seeing that the queer community has been viable for 30 years, and now people are starting to pay attention to it.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
I did want to talk a little bit more about the new album, Good Gracious Bad People, and it came out in a very timely manner on October 30th.
It did, yeah.
Big vibes. How was that?
We know our vibes. We know what we're about.
Yeah, the big vibes, the big vibey vibes, the big spooky vibes.
Yeah.
What was the process of that like, especially going through this release during quarantine? Obviously, it seems like y'all are able to kind of, you're like, you're a band family, so you guys are kind of cohesively together, obviously safely, I'm assuming, in a sense. But how did all of this kind of fall together? And then what were some of the like more of like, when you're developing like the music videos too, I always thought that they were like really cool, and also they had like such an immersive storyline.
Thanks.
It reminds me of like me watching like an ID channel story to a sense, which I mean I personally enjoy. I'm not a serial killer, but
you shouldn't have to say that on the chat.
Talking about serial killers on this interview, and I'm starting to really worry about you two.
I promise you, I'm fine. But if I say anything, it's coming from her.
That is what a serial killer would say.
Yeah.
Word cloud.
Absolutely.
That's what I criminal justice degree. That's it.
Do you read us as serial killers then?
And your name is Brian, which is already suspect. So
yeah.
Sus.
Listen, I was in electrical doing wires. I am the most boring. No, that even sounds like something you'd say as a serial killer.
Sus.
You're doing yourself no favors right now. Like,
nothing I have is going to do me any favors. There's nothing I can do.
That's all I'm saying.
As long as
one comment away from you, like, yeah, and I work as a clown. I go to like people's birthdays. Like, I don't trust it.
He's gonna pull out a red nose and be like, Hong Kong, let's go.
I mean, just because I work in close proximity to a lot of power tools. Anyway, Lizzie, ask your question. I also don't. I do. I work on this, so I don't. I just want to make sure that it is very clear for all the non-journalists in the chat that I am not a serial killer. Looks directly into camera. Anyway,
I've called all my sources. I'm like, we gotta investigate this stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, so the new album is great. How was it developing?
Yeah. So we
my God.
recorded it last year. We recorded it in October 2019 in Cleveland, Ohio. We all flew up there and we worked with Jim Wart, who is behind some albums like Something Corporate, Fiona Apple. He did the Incubus records that everyone loves. And it was really great. It was really out of our comfort zone. We sort of produced our last record before that one with ourselves and our producer, Aaron Pace. And we did it at home and we did over the course of a year because we weren't signed at the time before it was out. And we kind of could just work on it as we wanted to. Then this record came out and we had to write the record in 3 months and record it in like a month. So yeah,
Big day 9 energy.
Big day.
And we were away from home, so it was like sort of a crash course and being away from something familiar and having to just focus on making music every day. But it was pretty cool. Like, I mean, you get to wake up and just focus on making a record every day. That's kind of like the dream life, which is pretty
I
cool.
loved that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and gotta go to work. I guess this is work.
Yeah. And so it was pretty cool. I mean, and we loved it. Cleveland is a really cool city. It was the first time any of us being there, and we had a really good time being there.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, so it was fun. And then we got done with the record, and then the pandemic happened, and it was sort of trying to navigate how to put out an album when you can't play shows, you can't tour. And it was a bummer for us because we were in a conversation with a fairly big band, and we were talking about doing a tour with them, and it ended up not happening because of the pandemic. So we just kind of had to roll with it, which was cool. So
yeah, I mean, somehow this summer has managed to be like busier than ever before with everything that we've had to do and how carefully we've had to do it all.
Yeah,
it's been a
learning process. For
yeah,
sure.
It's been wild getting ready for this.
Yeah, we got to the point where, we were making music videos over the summer. And so we got to the point that, we had schedules of, we wanted to keep a minimal amount of people that were, recording and with the camera crew or like 2 people. So we were trying to keep it 3 people. And when one of us left, the next one would come in and, we had, everyone needed to wear masks except for this person who was going to be on camera. And then they'd put, it took a lot of extra planning, and music videos are a lot of planning. And so it's a separate thing that we had to figure out how to do, but we did. Got music videos out this summer. I think we're all still a little oh shit, we finished it. Fuck yeah.
It's done.
Which song was the music video for?
We have a
lot.
We have 5 music videos out right now. We have a video out for You're Off Cash and Soda. Then we have one out for Sick on 7th Street. We have one out for Last
Rodeo.
We have one out for Swings of Phone on the McGrady's River, and one out for When Oscar Fish Comes to Town. So,
and those were all filmed over the summer.
They were all filmed, not all
This
of them.
year.
So we dropped Scotch actually on New Year's Day because we thought it was going to be like a fun Prohibition era Roaring Twenties time, and then it was the Roaring Twenties, but more the Spanish flu.
Yeah, we got the pandemic part right.
That's like
Yeah.
so that didn't really work out the way we were hoping with the branding, but like. So we released this earlier in the year, and then we filmed everything Sick on 7th Street onward. We filmed as the pandemic had sort of started, and that was a interesting experience. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
I'll
so
say.
really impressive to have all those music videos out
Yeah.
so quickly in comparison to a lot of other bands too.
yeah, it wasn't fun in a lot of ways. I mean, it was fun to make, but
Right.
the Sick on 7th Street video is, I think, sort of like peak pandemic music video because we filmed it ourselves with our cameras individually, like as socially distanced as we could. It was literally filmed about like a week and a half into like peak pandemic, like right when it started in March. So we were all socially distancing ourselves. We were
rotating schedule
of like who's going to come in. We filmed it at my house. It was very intense and very strange. And I don't think we would have made a video like that in any other circumstance. But looking back and watching it now, it's kind of like a neat time capsule of just like how weird that time was, you know?
And then Susie edited the whole thing.
Yeah, that's good.
I was just going to say, like, it's going to be weird to, like, the pandemic must end. It has to end eventually. And so when it does, it's going to be really strange to look back and watch that video just because, you know, we know that it was, you know, one of us was waiting out on the street while the other one was inside finishing their shots. And then they would come out, they would wipe things down. The other one would go in, we'd record some more. Like, and I mean, that was just, you know, I think about that when I watched that video because it was just like, what can we do with the very little we have to work with right now? Everything's closed. Everything.
Yeah, we like still couldn't find like hand sanitizer and toilet paper and stuff like that.
We're talking about like real shit time.
I like brought this coveted hand sanitizer and like Clorox wipes. Like, be careful.
We're like, oh my God, how'd you find that?
Like everyone gets a squirt and a half. Use it wisely.
Yep.
We're rationing sanitizer.
That was pretty much what was happening. Like, that's really what was happening.
Yep, that was real life.
If we run out of sanitizer, the video ends. We can't let it happen.
Yep, we got to go with what we got.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So yeah, let me give you a chance to throw out some plugs here. Where can everybody watch these videos? Where can everybody go check out the music? Where can everybody find you? Whether your band profiles or your personal profiles, if you want people to follow you as well. I'll let you plug yourselves.
Yeah, well, our band can be found on Facebook at facebook.com/Sarah and the Safe Word. Our Instagram is Sarah and the Safe Word. Our Twitter is STSW Band. We have a TikTok. It's Sarah and the Safe Word. And we have an OnlyFans. It's Sarah and the Safe Word. We don't have an OnlyFans.
Listen, it's the next thing.
Even Maddox and I were like, wait, do we?
Yeah, I was like, oh shit. We're doing that now?
We have an insurance plan on healthcare.gov.
Check it out.
There you go.
It's only catastrophic insurance. It only helps if you get maimed by wild animals, but we're here for you.
$1,000.
You show up and like sing a song.
Make you feel better.
Yeah,
I can guarantee that.
As far as my personal stuff, I have a live journal. I write a lot of werewolf vampire fan fiction on it. It hasn't been updated in 14 years, so good luck finding it.
I'm sure my live journal's out there somewhere.
My real question is, do you have a Vampire Freaks?
I did have a Vampire Freaks. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Let's see. There was a whole generation of people.
I literally met a kid who was like 2 years younger than me, like 3 years ago, who has an active Vampire Freaks account. And I just need to know if there are other people out there like him.
Someone in the chat just asked if I have an AO3, and actually I do have an AO3 that I write X-Files fan fiction on. I'm never going to tell people what my
Damn.
Yep. So.
Damn. Beth, Maddox, you want to throw out your personals or no?
I mean, if you want to follow me for some reason, I'm just Maddox Rexton on everything. I will not spell that.
I'm flat the 7 on Twitter. Nothing. I don't update anything though. I just get on there when I want to complain about any particular. I'm not a journalist, so here's my.
Yeah, Beth is really lucky. She can complain about anything.
Anyone else in the band, but
oh yeah,
get on Twitter to complain about politicians. So if you want some, clever little witty tips about our politicians, flat the 7 on Twitter.
I did have a Fet Life for a while, but then people that knew the band started finding it, and that made me feel really uncomfortable. So like now I don't have that. So good job. So really impressed that people found it. Like good job, guys. So.
I imagine there's always going to be somebody who's like, what else are you like now that you've mentioned the live journal with the fanfic, there's going to be somebody who's like, not only did I find it, I enjoy it.
Find it now. Someone's going to find it, I'm sure.
Yeah, someone's been challenged now.
Yeah. Also now challenging them. Everybody who's watching this or listening to it later is like, oh, I gotta go find that.
Our fans are smart. I was reading our Genius annotations this morning, and like people found things, and that I was like, wow, you guys are intelligent. So they're gonna, I give them 15 minutes, and they're gonna find my AO3 account. So yeah.
I also, before we go, wanted to mention like there's some really funny parts in some of your songs, like actual comedy, and I'm like, wow, this is refreshing. Like there's jokes in a song, and I love this.
We always say we don't take ourselves very seriously. Like the bands that do are really fucking obnoxious. We've so many bands that are their heads are so far up their own asses about shit. We're never going to be that band. We don't take ourselves very seriously, and we laugh at ourselves all the time. So like, whatever.
We just do what we want to do, and whatever comes naturally, and it's always weird.
Yeah. It was the line in, I can't remember the song, but it's the one where it's like the middle of nowhere. No, literally, it's the middle of nowhere. The town is called Middle of Nowhere. She lives in a town called the Middle of Nowhere. And I'm like, this is fucking funny. This is good. And I can only imagine like sitting there, like however you write the lyrics down, is just like, oh, the middle of nowhere. It's kind of played out. No, it's the middle of nowhere. That's
like we
just
really
like going like deep on it.
The nowhereness.
Yeah, that was all. That was it was a collaboration between me and Keenan, because I think I had like 2 middle of nowheres in there, and then he was like, just throw a third one in there. That was hilarious if you do that. So
I remember being at band practice, and you and Keenan were like, hey, we got to show you this song we wrote. And I was like, okay. And all you had was up through, I think, through the first chorus. I think that was all you guys had. And there were some lyrics missing here and there, but y'all had this middle of nowhere bit, and you guys were giggling to yourselves like, it's gonna be great. And you sang through it. And I remember you got through it, and like you guys looked at us, and we were like, all right, like give this a go. And then like once it started to come together, we were all like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is awesome.
Yeah, in pre-pro it really just came together, and it was just the funniest. It just kept getting funnier and funnier, and it became a running joke even throughout the entire recording session.
We would make ourselves laugh so much at our own shit. It's hilarious. Like when we were writing Formula 666, Beth, I don't know if you remember this, but
I do remember this.
So I was living in San Francisco at the time, and Beth and Keenan flew out to hang out with me for a weekend, and we were in the process of finishing Red Hot and Holy. So I was flying back and forth to Atlanta to finish the record, and they had flown out to see me in California, and we had written Formula that day, and we had gotten to the point of the song where the dialogue is happening, for speed. That. And we must have like walked around San Francisco doing that bit. Staring at us on the sidewalk as we were going, for speed! Like, over. And we laughed about it for like probably like the whole night. It was so
Well, because we would forget about it and we'd start doing other stuff, or we'd go like, Sarah was showing us around because we had never been there before. So, Sarah was showing us all the different cool spots to see. And one of us would remember and just look at the other and for speed. And it would yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah.
And then I think we went back to the rest of the band, and everyone's like, "Okay, I guess."
Yeah.
You're like, is this not the funniest shit though? Like,
It's like,
Yeah.
you guys,
Come on, guys.
it's gonna be great.
That's literally the conversation.
Oh yeah.
So you guys, trust me, it's gonna be so funny. And we both like, "Okay, yes. So,
I love it. Well, we'll wrap up the podcast recording there. I thank you for coming on. This has been a real enjoyable conversation. I love the music. I love what I'm hearing. So I'm happy to have you on. Lizzie actually was the reason that we're like, you got to check out this band. And we played your song. Lizzie, what was the song? Now I can't remember these titles.
I think it was 6 Yeah, I think it was a while ago. We do like a DJ stream every Friday, and I usually put together like a playlist of my own music because Brian is an angry old man who doesn't listen to new music usually. So I usually have to be like, here, play this music and please like it.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And then you're like, let's have him on. I'm like, hell yeah, let's have him on.
but
I
yeah,
think it was Formula 666 or it was Dead Girls Tell No Tales that I put on there.
Yeah, I have to look back.
Dead Girls is a favorite of a lot of people. So
Nice.
yeah.
It is. Yep.
Well, we are very appreciative to have you on. Thank you for being here. We'll keep chatting on Twitch. So I saw there was at least one question in there. If you have any other questions, we'll go ahead and answer that. But otherwise, yeah. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.